Aloha and welcome back to Transfer Talk. As you know, my name is Travis and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Schwab. This series is called Finding Your Groove. It is all about taking the foundation you gained at Kauai CC and your first semester at UH West Oahu and bringing your studies to the next level. Key topics include thinking ahead, things like your capstone and post-graduation pathways, fighting complacency, meaning maintaining motivation and avoiding quote-unquote senioritis. And lastly, knowing your campus support systems.
Yes, Travis. So currently, I have the privilege to serve as an educational specialist for UH West Oahu. And part of our job is to help students navigate into their first semester, where they will eventually meet up with a faculty advisor who will help them register for their classes. I like to kind of think of our position as the pre-boarding before the onboarding. It's our goal that throughout your entire academic journey, you will have access to faculty and staff who will walk side by side with you from your initial orientation all the way through your graduating capstone experience. And finally, the culminating moment of graduation and what your post-graduation plans might be.
Having specialists like Dr. Schwab, Anuhea, and Rhonda have been truly invaluable throughout my academic journey. I simply couldn't have done it without them. So along with interviewing Rhonda, we will also have Shannon Pabo, the distance education classroom technician, as well as Jay Baker and Jennifer Duncklee, Kauai CC's librarians, who can help you with research questions and finding sources. So stay tuned, this is going to be a great series. Aloha.
And we'll see you soon.
Aloha and welcome back to Transfer Talk. Today's segment is called Thinking Ahead. It is centered around preparing for your capstone project. I have the pleasure of introducing our awesome guest, Dr. Kealani Cook. Dr. Cook is an incredible history professor. Taking one of his classes is a must if you are a UH West Oahu student. He is also my faculty success advisor, and he will be mentoring my capstone project this coming semester. The tentative title of that project is Pop Culture as a Facet of the Truman Doctrine, Subversive State-Making in the Mid-20th Century. Ultimately, we're in for some great insight today. Mahalo nui loa for coming on the podcast, Dr. Cook. Let's start off with an easy question. How are you and how's your summer going?
Oh, hey, Travis. I'm doing as well as you can be 2 weeks out from the semester starting. There's some like get to see everybody again and get back to doing stuff, but also it's like, oh, summer's almost over and all the things I wanted to accomplish are half done, which is still sort of done. Yeah, summer went great. A lot of faculty were technically not on the clock during summer unless there's summer specific things that you've been sort of tasked to do. But this is when we do most of our research. Like most of your research and writing is going to be during summer. So a lot of it is just scrambling to get stuff done. But yeah, summer went great.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely get the kind of mixed emotions of coming back, but I will say I'm super excited to get a lot of great work done this semester. Yeah, it's going to be great. So, can you confirm a rumor for me? Is it true that you went to graduate school with Alan Boyes and Mark Umbrello, Kauai CC's history instructors?
Yeah, Alan, I don't know. I think we only overlapped really briefly, so I didn't really know him. But yeah, me and Mark, I think, started at the same time. And I'm pretty sure the first couple of grad classes I took, Mark was in there. So we've known each other for, oh my God, 20 years at least.
Do you still keep in contact with him?
Facebook, the Gen X thing where we only know each other through Facebook now. I haven't used it for anything except for messaging because there's all these people who they switch jobs all the time. They're at different schools. I don't know what email address they're using. And it's just like, oh, Facebook Messenger. But yeah, we've known each other for a while. I haven't seen him in years though.
Yeah, well, if you want to get a reunion started, I'd be more than happy to buy both of you lunch either here on Kauai or over on Oahu. Just let me know. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, there's a stack of us from that same era that are just scattered across the island. So I think we should probably get together.
That'd be really cool. Awesome. This is kind of a interesting question. When should students start thinking about their capstone?
So, I mean, the best answer is probably now. Wherever you are in your career at West Oahu, you should start thinking about it. There is, I mean, it would be great if the start of people's junior year, they're really started intensely thinking about what they're going to do and everything. But honestly, it's not going to be something that for everyone is going to work out best. You should have it in your head. It should be something, and it shouldn't be something that's like nagging in your head, but it should be something that as you're going through classes, as you're doing other stuff, you should be thinking about like, hey, what do I want to do as the capstone? And one of the first things, probably the biggest choice, is going to be that practicum versus project option. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but have an idea of like, okay, do I want to do a project or do I want to do a practicum? What areas I should be thinking about? Do I have like world history? Like, do I want to do something that's American focused? Do I want to do something Hawaii focused? Do I want to do something Pacific focused, Asia focused? Those kind of broad things. Probably you should start thinking about your junior year. And that doesn't mean you should decide first month of your first semester of junior year. That's something you should be thinking about. No, you got to do this thing later on and just start working out. These are the kind of things I'm interested in. When it comes down to it, it's got to be something that you can do largely self-driven for a semester. And you have to have that interest. So figure out what you like, keep notes. I still have like a notebook, or almost all my notebooks. In the back, I just have list ideas for future projects. None of them will get done, but it's just to keep things. Oh, these are things that would be kind of fun, kind of cool to dig into.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Probably have like 15 different ideas that I've considered for the capstone, and just it's just about narrowing it down and figure out what works best to do in a single semester,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that leads nicely into my next question. What should students do to begin preparing beyond just keeping it in the back of their mind? Should they do like exploratory outline? Should they start collecting sources, that type of thing? What do you recommend students to do to really get off on the right foot?
So in the early stages, it's that keep your mind open to possibilities for these things. The other thing is, as you're going through your classes, some of the best preparation is going to be your writing intensive classes, especially if you're doing a project. A practicum is going to be a little bit different, but for a project, those writing intensive classes are setting up your workflow for you. How do you write? Everybody has a different way of writing. There's some commonalities where it's like, yeah, you should, at some point, you should be thinking about basic ideas, then you should be doing some research, and then you should probably figure out some sort of structure, and then you write. But other people, it's like, hey, I can't figure out the structure until I've free written for a week and have some ideas jotted down. Those WI classes should really set you up for how to write. How do you research? How do you write? And that's the early stages. Later on, as you get closer, and I strongly advise you, like you did, reach out early to who you're going to be working with. And you decide that a lot of people don't realize that you, as a student, decide who you're going to work with for your practicum or project. And there's still a little bit of like, you came to me and you're like, I'm going to do this thing on Asian pop culture. And be like, oh, you should work with Jason. Like,
Mhm.
that's the specialist in that. But for the most part, it's you guys decide who's going to do it. And then just if you have an idea or if you have a couple of ideas, then you do some of that preliminary research before the semester starts. There's enough time in the semester to do most of the intensive research where you're going through primary sources, etc. But hey, if you have an idea before the term starts, read a couple of secondary sources, read some other stuff that's written about the topic or around the topic. If you're just kind of doing the thing where like, oh, maybe I like this topic, but I don't know much about it, do the ugly, boring, Google it and see what pops up. That kind of stuff is great to get done before the semester starts. And if you are at a point where, let's say at the end of your junior year, you kind of have an idea for one of your writing intensive projects and you're like, I like this. I really like this topic. You can always use your coursework to get a jump start on your project. So, I mean, can I use you as an example?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for the History 363 course, the idea that you had for your and what you ended up writing your semester paper about is definitely something that was something that could use more exploration. There was space and you're interested in it, and it really sets you up nicely for that capstone. The same thing happens in grad school. A lot of the time, you kind of have a big idea what your master's thesis or your dissertation is going to be about. And it's often when you're writing something in a class that it really clicks. And that's going to end up becoming your dissertation or thesis. So, yeah, as you're working on stuff, it's the same thing where like sometimes you do a project in class and you're like, this needs more time. If I had a full term to work on this, this would be super cool. Then that's probably one of the things you should do your capstone
Yeah,
on.
absolutely. And it gives you time to like test it as well. See where you need to put that time and effort in to really make it amazing. Yeah, I totally agree. Using a topic that you did in a writing intensive class. Great idea. I love it.
Yeah. And one of the things too is when you're writing, the flaws in your ideas come out. A lot of the time, I'll think I have a great idea. And then when I'm actually writing, because when you're writing it, you have to lay out the argument clearly and coherently. And you're like, oh, there's a giant gaping hole right in the middle of my argument. And sometimes that first draft, sometimes you're like, ooh, there's a weak spot. You don't have time to fix that at the end of a term. So, yeah, the capstone, you can think of it also as a chance to really dig into an idea, have it well done. When honestly, even a good paper for a 300, 400 level class, the good paper is usually not very thorough. It's not where you would want that thing to be. And this is a chance to really give you the time to get it where you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember you recommended to me to actually go to the I don't remember exactly what it's called, but like at the end of the semester they do the presentations of the capstone projects.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit as well?
So you have to present, and this is every department or division does it a little bit differently, but humanities, you have to present. And it's funny, a lot of people freak out over this, and there is some stress because you're in a room, either in person or virtually, with all your professors, and you have to present to them. And that can be very stressful. But one of the things I like to remind students is, yeah, you're in a room full of people, but who are very smart and really know their stuff. But you spent a semester working on something that, unless one of them has specifically worked on that topic, you're the expert in that room. I mean, I had a student do one of the first ones that a student did was a history project on Ala Park. And she's freaked out because she's just like, everyone knows Ala Park. And it's like, dude, everyone knows that Ala Park exists. There's a skate park. It's been used as a homeless encampment for generations. That's what everyone knows. You know the history of this. If I hadn't read her paper, I wouldn't know any of this stuff. So it's just you're going in as the expert. So go to one of these senior presentations before you have to do it. Go the term before you do yours. See how nervous everybody is, and then see how well they end up doing anyway. You're always going to see faculty be like, wow, I didn't know that, because we know our individual things. We don't know. People present in English stuff, and I'm just like, oh my God, I have no idea any of this stuff exists. So you'll do better than you fear.
Yeah.
The other thing about going and seeing the presentations is there's a wide range of quality in these things. Some people are just barely squeaking through, and it's usually people who are also barely squeaking through and started very late in the semester to be serious about their projects. And you see where people not quite fail, but you'll see where people struggle and you'll see where people succeed. Get a sense of where the low bar and the high bar is. The high bar is very high. The people who do really well, I've honestly seen student presentations that were better than most faculty presentations at conferences because of the level of prep students put in. And I've seen some where it's just like, oh, you did not listen to anything we told you, and you just went out and were like, YOLO. Nah, we failed. Well, not failed, but like it showed. Either way, you're going to pass. It's just you want to present yourself well. And the piece of advice I have for all my students is that, and this is any kind of presentation at a conference or anything like that, if there's 15, 20 people presenting, they're not going to remember everything you say. If you can leave them with what your project is generally, and one really cool piece that illustrates a lot of your ideas. If they walk out of there remembering those two things and your name, you win. That's a win at a conference because no one will remember your entire presentation. So keep that in mind as you're prepping your stuff. And this is much later when you're actually doing your presentation. Remember your general idea, one really cool thing that they will walk out of there remembering, and then everything else is gravy.
It's great advice. And I'm reflecting as you're saying this to the presentation I did last semester at the Student Creative Works and Research Symposium. And I was so nervous going into that presentation. I literally recorded my 20-30 minute presentation 15 times to like listen back and see, oh, am I messing up there? Am I messing up there? Once you're up on that stage, once you're on that Zoom call, whatever it is, and you're just doing it, you kind of find that flow. And there is a direct correlation to the amount of effort and preparation that you do to the final outcome. So yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Anything you become an expert on, you can usually talk about once you get through the first 10 seconds of just, oh crap. Example, if you find what you're a nerd about, and it could be history, it could be Pokemon, it could be whatever the hell you're really nerdy about, usually people cannot shut up about the things that they really, really know. And that's where you should be at the end of that term. You should really know that thing. You should know it better than anyone in the room because you had a semester to work on it, and really like take some ownership. This is something that I am good at, this one thing. And it could be as small a thing as the history of Ala Park, but damn it, I know the history of Ala Park. So that level of confidence, which will come from preparation, will definitely do you well when you're presenting. Like you said, there's one thing of sitting there and re-recording and thinking about all those things. Ooh, I sounded a little weird on minute 4. Who cares? End of the day, it's the topic, and when you know it and you're interested in it, it shows.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So my next question has kind of two sides of it. Picking a topic can be difficult, both in the sense that people like you and I, we have 15 topics that we could theoretically do. And then there's other students that are struggling just to think of a topic. So how do you know if an idea or a hypothesis is viable and has potential?
Okay. So the first thing is, do you care about it? It's so difficult to work on something you don't care about. And God, I remember classes I took as an undergrad where I was assigned a topic. I don't care about medieval economic history, was not something I cared about. And I was assigned it, and we all had to write kind of the same paper. And it's, it's a good exercise and everything, but I didn't care about it. And the papers they weren't as good as the papers where I cared about the thing. And it could be something that you think is incredibly important, where you're like, this is an important thing for people to understand because it shows this really key part of history. Or it could just be something that you're into. I wrote a bunch about comic books in my master's program. And I'm pretty sure I went to Vegas with Mark for a conference in Vegas. I think he was there. Don't go to conferences in Vegas. It's not good. But it was just like, I really like comic books. Are comic books by themselves an important topic? No, but you can get a comic book. You can be like, I'm going to be nerd out about this thing. And I know that I can sustain myself working on this. Mm-hmm. And then you have to come up with, okay, now how do I actually find something that's important about that? And this is, not everyone is going to agree with this, but I think this is something that's true throughout the humanities and something that will probably do you well in whatever career. Look for power. Look for where power flows, how power is illustrated, how power is thought about, how power is created. And you will usually be able to find it in almost everything. And that will often give you a hypothesis that's worth working on. Because you could do a comic book thing and just be like, hey, in the 1980s, you see the art styles go to more and more complex shading or something. And like, I mean, that's great. If you are talking to a room full of other comic book nerds, great. There's a subreddit for that. But if you're trying to present to a broader audience and talk about history, then you can be like, hey, look, if you look at, I had one student do this really good one where breaking down presentations of femininity from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and then into the 80s. It showed the cultural backlash against feminism in the 1980s and all this kind of stuff. And it's just because he was like, I want to write about comic books. That's the one thing I care about. But he took it and then was like, okay, look for the power dynamics in it. You can look through presentations of class in Superman through its history. There's actually some really cool stuff showing about the diminishment of the idea of working class in the mid 20th century. Clark Kent going from this crusader against corruption and stuff into Clark Kent running puff pieces. And it illustrates also like, oh, this is where journalism is becoming seen more and more as just reinforcement of the status quo instead of pushing against it. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with that. But it's because there's a power element in there. If you find the power element, all these relationships in society, these broad relationships in society are driven in one way or another by people maintaining or grasping power or people pushing back against and trying to find power. You'll find something that has legs. So it's interest and then importance. And the cheat for me for importance is find power.
Even for my project, I'm looking essentially at what is pop culture from the late 40s through the mid 50s tell us about US empire. That's all about power, who is
Yeah.
in control, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think that's really fantastic advice.
Sorry, one last thing, but also make sure you have sources. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you have great idea and it's just like, ooh, I have no sources. And then you scrap it and you find something else or you find another angle in. But once you find an idea you like, make sure you have sources for them.
Very true. Very true. Absolutely. All right. So we've talked a lot about the senior project, the research project side of things. So can you outline some of the advantages of the other option, the senior practicum?
Yeah. So the senior practicum, I've done more of the projects than the practicums. But the senior practicum is basically a mini internship with a written portion added in. I am not good at finding people senior practicums. I have a couple of places that I could recommend, but for the most part, the senior practicum is going out and finding an internship, working there for a while, and then writing up and thinking about the actual experience. Advantages. One of the most important advantages I think of the senior practicum is you going and finding this thing. That is a really important, just general life skill. One of the reasons I don't do the senior practicum is I've always been bad at going out and cold calling a place and being like, hey, can I work here? That's an important career skill. It's an important life skill. You find someone who's involved in politics, they had to go do that. They had to call and just be like, I want to go and volunteer for you guys and work themselves up. And then next thing you know, they're running for office. People who are big in nonprofit stuff, they have to go and find those things. People are in activism. You have to put yourself out there and figure out how to contact people, how to hustle up some opportunities for yourself. Increasingly, I'm thinking that's one of the most important things about the senior practicum itself is that process. Then you go and volunteer. A lot of the time, the volunteer work is going to be drudge work. At Waipahu, at the plantation center, I've had people who went in and they're just like, their whole job was they needed to clean out a storeroom and catalog everything. And they're just sitting there cataloging. This one dude, Tony, who was working at the Air Museum, Warren Air Museum, I think, out in Pearl Harbor. His entire thing was the same thing. He was just people send them pieces of things, and then he has to figure out what the part is, and then write it down and put it in a drawer. And it is mind-numbingly dull. Museums need that. That's one of the things that happens. But then often reflecting on it is an important process. What most people end up doing is just writing short journals about this is what I did today, this is what I learned. And then at the end, you kind of put that all together and you come up with a thing about this is what I learned about working in this particular, working in nonprofits, doing this. Some of those practicums, honestly, it's just getting a little bit of work experience out there. And I don't know how much students pull out of it in terms of actually like intellectual stimulation from being in that thing. Other times I've seen that student Tony because he liked learning, he liked figuring stuff out. And so he basically went and he's doing this thing where he's cataloging stuff, but he ended up asking for and creating a reading list based on museum studies and then doing this whole really smart, really articulate thing about museum studies
Nice.
based on his experience. So the senior practicum, it's some of it is just it's an internship and it's the same thing as any internship. You get out of it what you if you're just looking for a line on a CV, a line on a resume, you can get that. If you're looking for more, you can probably get that too. I know a lot of people who have been able to not a lot, but a number of people who've been able to spin that into a paid job right after graduating. I think one student at that museum, actually two at that museum. I think Waimea Bay, at least one student ended up with her job because of that internship. So it could be,
Nice.
I mean, it could be something of just straight up like make connections, make relationships, spin those into a job.
I'm glad you brought up the placement side of things because that's something I've always been interested in, especially for distance ed students. Do faculty members at UHS Oahu have a network to help place students in practicums on the neighbor islands, or is it solely student led?
It's going to be on Oahu. And again, some people are better at this than I am. If you're going to do a practicum, like Jason's pretty good at hooking people up with practicums and finding those. It depends on their individual networks. Jason's network is mostly around connections to like Tokai and Japanese immersion learning and stuff like that, or English immersion learning from Japanese side. Kim has this long history in activism, and she can find pretty easily like internships with activist groups. It's going to depend on the people. If you're on Maui, Kim has hookups on Maui because she has ties to Maui. If you're on the Big Island, I could probably help. Kauai, I don't really have ties to Kauai except I guess Mark. But it's going to be up to you. And even then, it's usually like, well, we've placed people at this place before, and here's a number to call, but you got to go set it up.
Gotcha. Okay.
And one of the things to remember, especially smaller nonprofits and smaller museums, they always need free labor. And that's what an intern is at the end of the day. We need somebody to go into our archive and sit there and we got a bundle of papers. We don't know what's in it. Go through those. Or sometimes it's we need someone to sit out at the front desk during the slow periods and just, hi, welcome to our museum.
So for Kauai specifically, I can think of at least 3 separate projects that you could do at KCC's campus that would be really cool legacy pieces that would benefit the campus community and the larger island community as well. So it's me and you talk about those in case a student comes along and needs an idea for a practicum. So
Yeah, definitely.
cool. All right, awesome. So I guess my next question would be, how do you structure your mentorship if a student is in one of your capstone classes? What is expected of them, and what are some of the steps?
Every faculty member does it differently. My structuring is very loose. It depends on like, okay, what are you coming in with? Have you done any of the secondary readings? If not, here's a stack. Go through some of these, figure it out. And then I usually have multiple students because sometimes you only have one, sometimes you have two. This term, actually, someone just signed in and they have another one. I'll usually set up a meeting early on in the term where it's like, okay, meet each other. If you want to set up a writing group, etc., like, there's at least one other person in this sort of stack. And then using Google Classroom. At first, I was not doing this, and this was a problem. Using Google Classroom, basically every week, send out a prompt of like, where are you? What have you done this week? What are you going to do next week? And just to keep the thing in your mind. For some students, it's just like, hey, I have this semester and I'm just gonna plow through this thing and I'm gonna use that time. For other students, I have a semester means, oh, I can work on it at the end of the term. And there is a slight amount of just to keep that pressure and just keep that thing in the back of your head. This is something I have to work on every single week. There's the weekly one, and then a quarter way into the term, for the students that already know their topic, it's like, okay, what's your topic? Give me topic and what sources you're looking at, etc. For students that are just coming in with nothing, and that happens sometimes. Students come in and they're like, gonna do a project. That's what I got. Then the first couple of weeks are just cast that net, figure out something. But a quarter way through, I want a topic, and some sort of sense of where you're going to do your research. I'm going to focus mostly on newspapers online that I can find. Am I going to focus mostly on like, what are your sources that you're looking at? And then by halfway through the term, you should have your research. If not, that's not always going to be done, but halfway through the term, you should have a pretty good sense of, does the project still have legs in terms of sources, how you're going to sort of start thinking about and organizing it. And you won't have a thesis, or you won't have your final thesis, but you should have like a vague idea of, yeah, this is the idea that's coming through. This is an argument I can make, because that will change as you're writing. Nothing makes the ideas actually work so much as having to go through them step by step. That's what the writing does for us. And then a month out, first draft, second draft, probably 2 weeks out from the final presentation. And a lot of the time, that second draft is pretty damn close. If you're following the schedule, that first draft is where you see, like, okay, there's going to be major edits, etc. There's going to be rough spots. By that second draft, you're usually pretty close. And then that final draft is buffing and polishing. So you should only have to buff and polish in the last 2 weeks, prepare your presentation, and then focus on the rest of your stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because you're going to have other classes to finish. The mentoring, students that want to meet every week, office hours are there and no one else is using them. So, the office hours are there for that. But I usually try to make sure that we have either individual or a group call at the beginning. If everyone seems set and they don't want to have individual calls, I make sure that anytime there's one of those big moments, so like quarter way through where you should have a sense of what the hell you're doing, we're going to talk. Halfway through, when you're about, okay, you should be able to start writing very soon, we should have a talk. And then that first draft, we should have a talk. Other than that, I kind of leave it open. Some people meet every week. I don't, unless a student really wants to, just because it becomes, I don't know. My tendency is to let students have their space to self-direct and work around stuff. If I'm reading those weekly responses and it's like, ooh, nothing is happening, then probably we should meet and figure out why the hell nothing's happening.
It makes sense. As an instructor, you can't give much feedback if not a lot has been done, right?
Yeah.
You want to give them space so that they can develop their paper and then give constructive feedback and guidance. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's also like, at this point, you should have a sense, because of those other writing intensive classes, you should have a pretty good sense what your process is. I should structure it more, honestly, but that's where it is currently.
Gotcha. Okay. Are there any other past projects that you want to give a shout out to or a highlight for the listeners?
Yeah. I mean, the Ala Park one, it's funny because I was terrified of that one, because all the way through when we're working on stuff, that student was just like, oh, I found this thing and I don't know what to do with it. And I was just like, you have such cool stuff that you found, just write it up. And up until the last moment, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if she's going to be able to pull this off. And then the first draft came in and I was like, oh, this is not going to work. And then the second draft came in and it was just like, oh, you just did it now. And then her presentation was super good. Yeah, that one that was on the museum studies, which was just super cool, that the student just was like, I'm just going to learn a whole new discipline. I had a student do one on the Battle of Okinawa, and then just at the end talking about like his grandma's experiences as a child fleeing during the Battle of Okinawa. And it was just kind of like, whoa, it just kind of hit that moment of the personal popped in. I've seen some really solid presentations from students. One student in English was like, how do I think about Shakespeare when I'm going to be teaching? How do I add a Hawaiian cultural lens to the teaching of Shakespeare if I'm going to be teaching Shakespeare at a charter school or a Kaiapuni? And she was like, dude, Richard III, you read Richard III and you read a Hawaiian Mo'olelo, like it's genealogy, it's all of these machinations at the sort of chiefly level. It's like, oh, this is almost Shakespeare's whole like weird history moment where he's just writing history stuff. Oh, these are really easily transferred over. And she composed the Mele Inoa for Richard III and did it and chanted it. And it was just like, holy crap. Another student that was at the museum who was retired and was using his GI Bill, and he had left the military in like the 90s, had a city and county job, retired, using up some GI Bill. His thing at the Air Museum down at Pearl Harbor was they didn't have anybody who knew how to fix any of the helicopters. And he's like, literally, these are the helicopters that I worked on in the 90s. And so a lot of his presentation was just about, there's all these people. He's like, I know all these mechanics. A lot of it was just reach out to all these people in the community that know how to do these things. And he's like, it's really fun working on these things now that I'm retired and I'm not doing it for a living. So that was kind of a fun one from a completely different angle of just bringing life experiences in. Those ones particularly stand out.
Nice. It's amazing like how vast the topics can be, the range of them. That's a perfect example. It's really up to the student and what they want to do and what they're passionate about and what they're interested in, which is really cool.
Yeah, I said this earlier, but find your nerdery. Everybody has a nerd in them. Find the thing that you nerd out about. And it could be, some people are just like, well, I only like video games. Well, it's like, cool. There's a ton you could get from video games. I'm really waiting for a good, solid Empire and Tekken, or the history of the mega corporations in Japan and Tekken. You could do that. That's there. You take your nerdery, you find the way your nerdery applies. Or have students who are just like, I like fashion. And it's just, there's already been so much about fashion. I had a student do a short presentation in a class about the bra, just the history of the bra. People were like, you're going to do a thing about bras. And there's a ton of really smart stuff that you can do when you're interested in something and you're willing to dig into it and put thought into it.
Absolutely. So, is there any other advice that you would like to leave with our students who may be stressed about their capstone? Is there anything else you would like to add?
Again, find your nerdery, do your research, and feel confident in your expertise. You will go in not being an expert. You will leave being an expert on that one small thing. Don't go too big. Don't be like, I'm going to write about World War II. You won't be an expert on World War II. If you're like, I'm going to write about film and the Truman Doctrine, and it's like, okay, you've narrowed it down. You're like, this is an area that I can become an expert in 3 months. If you do the research, that will carry you and sustain you. In terms of, if you wait and don't do the research, all your insecurities will bubble up and it'll be incredibly difficult to actually start working on it and doing the writing. Just go ahead, start, say that you know nothing, do your research. Once you know stuff, you'll be able to do the thing. The other thing, this is a piece of advice that is from grad school. No one will read your thesis. Your advisor is the only person, your advisor and the people on your committee, the only people who are going to read it. Chances are no one will read it. People will kind of have this imagination of like, this is going to be the most important thing I ever write. Probably not. Don't psych yourself up over it. You want to do a good job, that's clear, but don't get it built up in your head to, this is the most important thing of my entire college career. It's not. It's a capstone. It's ending your college career. It's, getting a chance to show all these things that you've built up and your skills and everything. But at the end of the day, if you lose sleep over this thing, you got to step back, breathe, and remember, at the end of the day, it's a class. It's just a class. You got to pass it. Most people are going to pass it. If you stay on schedule and if you work throughout the term, you'll be fine. Lots of people have done it before you. Lots of people will do it after you. You're going to do it too. Just stay on schedule, do your work. You'll be fine. And if it's not the best thing you've ever done ever, you'll live.
That's a really good way to approach it. It's just do the best that you can, right?
Yeah.
Don't lose sleep over it. Don't let it consume you. Just do the best
Yeah.
that you can. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important to hear. And with that, I want to say that I'm really looking forward to this semester and getting some great work done on my project and working with you. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Dr. Cook. This was great. I loved it.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing this. This would be very helpful for students.
So, you're now in the second half of your junior year or the first half of your senior year. Take a moment to breathe and appreciate how far you've come. It can feel a bit strange, right? You're proud of all the progress that you've made, but at the same time, it's a bit intimidating knowing there's still more to go. Think of this as your 7th inning stretch. To keep up the awesome work and continue growing, it's important to avoid getting too comfortable. In other words, let's talk about how to dodge senioritis, how to fight complacency. We're going to go through some strategies and approaches that can help keep you on track. So first up, set clear goals. Defining both short-term and long-term goals helps keep you focused. It's a great idea to actually write them down. Put your goals as the wallpaper on your phone and laptop. Your goals can be as simple as getting all of your assignments in on time during midterms week. That's a task that can sometimes feel like a David and Goliath battle when life gets crazy. Or your goals can be as ambitious as deciding to take 5 writing intensive classes next semester. The key point is, by putting your goals down on paper, you gain a sense of clarity amidst all the chaos. It gives you something concrete. Seeing the goal every time you open your phone or laptop is an unavoidable reminder, and it keeps you accountable on the day-to-day. Seek feedback. Regularly asking for feedback from professors and peers is a vital part of identifying areas for improvement. We all want to become the best writers and researchers that we can possibly be, and I firmly believe that growth in these areas cannot happen in a vacuum. So, reach out to your professors. They're there to help and guide you. Don't hesitate to ask them to review your essays, research proposals, or any other academic work. Their insights can provide a different perspective that you might not have considered. Additionally, you should connect with your peers. Sometimes a fellow student can offer valuable advice because they're going through very similar, if not the exact same experiences. Peer reviews can be a great way to gain constructive and relatable feedback. And finally, don't forget about utilizing resources like the Know-Yow Center. It's an excellent place to get guidance on your writing and research skills. The tutors at the Know-Yow Center are amazing at helping students sharpen their work. You can literally send your essays in for review through an online portal, and you'll get feedback via email. You don't even have to set up a Zoom call. I understand that asking for feedback can be uncomfortable. It's not always easy to hear constructive criticism. But remember, growth comes when we step outside of our comfort zone, and feedback is a crucial part of the learning process. Embracing feedback with an open mind helps you refine your academic skills. So, make it a regular habit to seek out feedback. It's a powerful tool for continuous improvement and achieving your academic goals. I remember having a conversation with one of my peers. They were struggling at keeping up in one of our history lectures. They said that they just couldn't retain all of the information. So I asked this person about their note-taking process. And ready for this? They filled up 2 entire notebooks, front and back of each page, before midterms even hit. I was totally shocked. So I told them, just sit back and actually listen to the lecture instead of trying to get every single word down. Listen to the lecture like it's a story. And when something super important pops up, or when an interesting connection comes to mind, write down the timestamp. Then after class, you can go back and rewatch the lecture to find those key points and take whatever notes you need in as much detail as you need. And guess what? That approach worked for them. So the moral of the story is, finding what works best for you is a process. It's an evolution. It can be different from class to class, professor to professor. But don't be scared to try something new. It may just be a game changer. And you never know where that insight, that pathway might come from. So talk to people. Ask them about their approach. Reflect on successes and setbacks. Tied to seeking feedback is the process of regularly assessing both your achievements and your setbacks. This is crucial for continuous personal and academic growth. By understanding what works well and what needs improvement, you can make more informed decisions moving forward. This is key when preparing for major projects like your capstone. When you experience success, take a moment to reflect on the factors that contributed to those positive outcomes. Identify the strategies, habits, and mindsets that facilitated your achievements. This reflection not only reinforces effective behaviors, but also equips you with a toolkit that you can use in the future. Equally important is examining your failures and setbacks. Assess what didn't go as planned, but more importantly, why. Recognizing the root causes of your challenges can provide valuable lessons, and it will help you avoid similar pitfalls in the future. Remember, failure is often the best teacher. It offers insights that successes might overlook. Like everything in life, balance is key. By maintaining a balanced perspective, celebrating your victories while learning from your mistakes, you create a continuous feedback loop that supports your growth. This reflection process encourages adaptability and resilience, essential traits for lifelong learning and personal development. And reflecting on your journey doesn't benefit just you. It can also inspire those around you. Sharing your experiences, both good and bad, can provide valuable lessons for your peers, fostering a collaborative and supportive learning environment where everyone benefits from the collective wisdom. Challenge yourself. Again, stepping outside of your academic comfort zone is a fantastic way to grow. This could mean enrolling in a class with a professor that you haven't met yet, which can introduce you to new perspectives and teaching styles within your department. Or it might involve diving into a subject that you haven't explored before or wouldn't normally consider. These experiences can broaden your knowledge base and spark new interests. Consider taking on a fascinating research project, whether it's a topic that deeply interests you or something entirely new. Engaging in research hones your critical thinking skills and can lead to exciting discoveries. Beyond the classroom, think about starting a campaign to make a difference within your campus community or even closer to home, your on-island community. This can be anything from promoting sustainability initiatives to organizing support for local causes. Such projects not only benefit others, but they also develop your leadership and organizational skills. Look for internships to gain vocational experience. Stepping into a professional environment allows you to test your skills in practical scenarios, learn new industry-specific techniques, and develop a professional demeanor. This tangible experience not only reinforces your classroom learning, but can also clarify career aspirations and open doors to future job opportunities. Embracing these challenges, breaking the norm, enriches your educational experience. It can open doors to opportunities that you never imagined. It's all about pushing your boundaries and discovering just how much you're capable of achieving. Stay curious. Cultivating a mindset of curiosity and a love for learning is so incredibly important to both personal and academic development. One way to stay curious is to explore topics beyond your curriculum. This can mean diving into subjects that aren't directly related to your major, but that fascinate you nonetheless. For instance, if you're a science major, consider taking a course in philosophy or art. If you're studying literature, why not explore a class in technology or environmental science? This multidisciplinary approach can provide fresh perspectives and inspire innovative thinking. Some of the best and most innovative projects are multidisciplinary in nature. So get out there and talk to some of your fellow students who are on a different course of study. Another way to stay curious is to take a deep dive on something super specific. Find all of the available information on the topic. Literally become UH West Oahu's expert on it. From there, you can share that information with the campus community, and you can inspire so many others that way. Personally, I have a list of probably 10 to 15 different research ideas that I would love to take on. And there are at least 6 or 7 specific non-degree pathway classes I'd love to take at UH West Oahu, if only there was enough time. But here's the thing. Education is a lifelong journey, so it doesn't have to be and shouldn't be crammed into 4 short years. The key takeaway is Kauai CC and UH West Oahu are giving you the skills to be a lifelong learner. It's also important to reward yourself. Recognize and reward your efforts and successes to maintain that motivation. You know, senioritis is not purely like laziness. It can be fueled by burnout and exhaustion. It's important to acknowledge the hard work that you've put in and take some time to recharge. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or just need a break, schedule some time for activities that help you reset. Hit the beach, play some video games, hang out with friends, or dive into a good book. Whatever helps you relax and unwind. By giving yourself permission to take these breaks, you'll return to your studies with renewed energy and focus. Remember, maintaining a balance between work and relaxation is key to sustaining long-term motivation and overall well-being. Now, if you're really struggling in this moment, I want you to visualize graduation day. Picture yourself walking across the stage. This is the culmination of all the years of your hard work and dedication. All the triumphs and setbacks have led to this, You made it. Feel the weight of your gown and the pride in your heart as you accept your diploma, surrounded by the cheers and support of your family and your friends. Imagine looking out into the audience and seeing the smiles and the tears of joy from loved ones, the people who have supported you along the way. This moment represents not just the completion of your academic journey, but the beginning of new adventures and opportunities. Know that each step today brings you closer to this rewarding milestone. And with that, I hope this helps. Finish strong. You've come so far. And if no one told you today, I'm proud of you. Keep up the great work. Now we're sitting down with one of my all-time favorite people, Rhonda Liu. Rhonda works for the University Center here on Kauai CC's campus as a student services specialist. I've known Rhonda for years, and she has been a real guiding force throughout my academic journey. Mahalo nui loa for coming on the podcast, and of course, mahalo for all that you do. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yes, thank you, Rhonda, for being with us today. So many may not know, but Rhonda was the first to train me on the UH Star registration software when I first started here at UH West Oahu. So I know she brings a wealth of information and wisdom to the table. So Rhonda, to get things started, please share with us some of the roles and responsibilities of your current position supporting students transferring through the University Center.
Great question, Ephraim. I assist and provide guidance to students interested in transferring to a four-year college or university to ensure they transition smoothly and easily. Services I provide include helping students in choosing a career or major, exploring programs, applying to the institution, registering for classes, and connecting to transfer specialists and resources to help them succeed.
I'm thinking about all the times that I have come to talk story with you in your office. When you're advising students, what are some strategies that you've passed on to them that can help them align their values with their future career goals?
To begin with, identify your values and what is important to you. Does your major align with who you are and what you want to accomplish in your career or life? With all the choices, it can feel overwhelming. Meeting with a career advisor can help you in narrowing down your career choices. One way is by self-assessments, which can help you match your values, skills, interests, and personality to a career path. Aside from assessments, counselors can help you connect your major to possible careers so you can make an informed decision and follow your own path. Choosing a career path is not easy and can be a tough decision. There is the pressure from peers, family, or society's expectations of you. Be sure to surround yourself with people who are going to support your goals. Bottom line is, do what you love, makes you happy, and gives your life purpose.
So Rhonda, what mindsets or goals should students have when they begin to prepare for life after graduation?
Travis, a good place to start, if you have not done so already, is to make a plan. Be proactive in planning your major and academics, as well as your future career and educational goals. Meet with an advisor for a graduation check to make sure you're on track for graduation. In your final semester, apply for graduation and spend some time exploring your career goals. Things like that you can check off on your list.
Yeah, that's some really good advice, Rhonda. It's so important that our students are proactive in their academic journey, looking forward to what the next steps are going to be. So with that being said, what advice can you give to a career-minded student who's looking to make connections or network within their prospective industry?
You know, Ephraim, I was thinking a lot about that question. Put yourself out there. Talk to as many employers as you can. Attend career events, job fairs, and employer network events. Every person you meet is a potential door of opportunity. Discuss your career goals with your counselor and faculty advisor who can help connect you to potential employers. Also, attend workshops to learn resume, interview, and job skills that can help you land your dream job, or at least your first real job and career. Also, just some general career advice. Learn about your chosen major and career. Gather information from career search websites on possible careers, salaries, job outlook, and industry trends. For example, ask yourself, does your career require continuing education? Is a graduate degree required? Confirm your major and career choice through internships, part-time jobs, volunteer opportunities, and community service. And get real-world or hands-on experience if you can.
And if you might, what are some examples or success stories that you've experienced as you've worked with transfer students and their future career goals?
You know, every student is a success because each individual's journey is unique, right? In my experience working with students at KCC who are interested in transferring to the four-year college or university, it's great to see students starting at KCC and continuing their educational journey toward achieving a bachelor's degree or higher through the UH system. For example, in 2023, there were 63 total transfers from KCC to a UH four-year campus. Specifically, there were 29 UH West Oahu graduates from Kauai this year, and overall, an average of 60 students graduated from UH distant education programs supported by the University Center. And so I see all of those students as successes.
So Rhonda, what on-campus Kauai CC resources do you encourage our students to continue using while they pursue their four-year degree here on Kauai CC's campus?
I would say take advantage of as many of the resources on campus as you can. For example, our library services, test proctoring, and also, most importantly, technology support. We have this wonderful distant education classroom here on campus that you can use. Come and see Shannon. And then also, we have laptop loaners if you need them. So like I said, just make sure that you're taking advantage of all the resources that's available to you on the Kauai Community College campus.
So I guess in conclusion, is there any other advice or information that you would like to add?
Sure. I would encourage students to be a lifelong learner, learn new things and be open, flexible and adaptable, and take risks. Your first job, it may not be quite your dream job, and that's okay. Your career evolves as you learn and grow. Give yourself time, be patient, and stay positive. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Great advice.
Yeah, education's a lifelong process, right? So, Rhonda, I really want to say once again, mahalo for taking the time to come speak with us. You're an amazing resource, and we are so lucky to have you. To all the listeners, we encourage you to utilize all of the resources that Rhonda has mentioned, and be sure to stay tuned for our next guest, Shannon Pabo, who is the Distance Education Classroom Technician, another great resource offered to our distance ed students here on Kauai CC's campus.
So before we let you go, Rhonda, what is some contact information where students who want to reach out to you could get a hold of you?
Sure. So students can contact me at 808-245-8330 or email uckauai@hawaii.edu. And for more information on distant education programs, students can go to the University Center website at kauai.hawaii.edu/university-center.
And students can always come up and visit you in person as well, right?
Of course. Yeah, they definitely can. I'm located in the One Stop Center on the second floor in room 206F.
Awesome. Rhonda, thank you so much again.
Mahalo.
So now we're sitting down with Shannon Pabo. Shannon Pabo is the Distance Education Classroom Technician. For those who don't know, the Distance Education Classroom is located on the second floor of the library here on Kauai CC's campus. Shannon, thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, mahalo Shannon for joining us today. This must have been a pretty exciting opportunity for you, for Kauai Community College and UH West Oahu to provide this valuable resource for transferring KCC students. So what was the vision that really led to the creation of this state-of-the-art facility?
The vision came from the Keleka Ho'ona'oao Title III grant that Kauai Community College wrote in collaboration with UH West Oahu. And the focus of that grant was to serve our Native Hawaiian students that are continuing in their higher education and attaining their bachelor's degree from UH West Oahu and still being able to live here on island and reside on Kauai.
Shannon, I must say, this is my favorite place on campus. So clean, so modern, it's absolutely amazing. For the students who may not know, what are some of the resources available here in the distance education classroom?
We have technologies in here to support their asynchronous and synchronous classes online. We have laptops available if they forgot theirs or if they don't have any. Visiting faculty who would like to meet with their students face-to-face if they wanted to could use the classroom as well. And then we have support staff who can assist with IT problems or even help navigate using the learning management system.
Excellent. That's really great for the students to have access to those types of resources. What would you say makes this space so useful for students who are engaged in the distance learning program here at KCC? I've been in distance learning education for quite some time, and I've always found that trying to find connection to community, to try and find places to study, to do work, are extremely valuable, especially in the business of life and all the distractions that can get to us. What would you say are those main ways that students are engaged here in this space?
Yeah, everyone has a different learning style, right? And so I feel like the flexibility of this room offers a space that can fit the needs of our students in whatever way it is that's conducive to their learning style. And it also offers our distance students a place that they can call theirs here on Kauai Community College campus. So they can come here and they know that this classroom is for them.
Let's say I have a synchronous class, right? Can I come in here and actually log on to Zoom on the big TVs?
Yeah, of course.
Wow, that's awesome. What about like group project? Can I email my professor and say, hey, there's like 3 or 4 students in this class that are all based on Kauai. Can we all be put into this group? Could we actually come into this room and collaborate on that group project?
Yeah. So you could come in here for individual study. You could come in here for collaboration, group study. Like you said, your synchronous, asynchronous classes, you could come in here to use the classroom for. If you had meetings or trainings. And the room is also available for reservation if a student or even a visiting faculty wanted to reserve the room.
Awesome. So this is quite the space. I mean, if students haven't seen it yet, I really encourage you to please stop by over here to the library and take a look at it. And if you are an inquiring student, Shannon, how might a student reserve using this space?
So the easiest way would be to visit the website at kauai.hawaii.edu/DE-classroom. And on the website, you'll find our calendar with availability and then also the form for the application to reserve the room.
Mahalo nui loa, Shannon. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for all of the support that you offer students. It is greatly appreciated. To all the listeners, be sure to come up and check out the Distance Education Classroom. It is a fantastic resource at your disposal. So now we're sitting down with 2 absolutely amazing people. In my opinion, 2 rock stars. Jay Baker and Jennifer Duncklee, Kauai CC's librarians. Mahalo for coming on the podcast, gang, and mahalo for all that you do.
Yeah, it's great having you, Jay and Jenny. We're here at the Jay and Jenny Show today, so thank you for coming in to speak with us. Jay, what types of resources would a UH West Oahu transfer student who is studying here on the KCC campus have access to?
So they basically have all the stuff that we have for regular KCC students, so they can use the space. We have multiple study spaces, private and collaborative spaces, which are open to them exactly as they would be to a KCC student. They can check out Chromebooks and laptops, and we have special laptops for West Oahu students that can be reserved for them, PCs and MacBooks and stuff like that. And then the third thing is the research resources. So they have access to all the stuff we would have here at KCC, but in addition, they have access to the UH West Oahu informational resources. So like research databases and stuff like that.
Yeah, Jay, speaking from experience, I've utilized some of the research resources that are available here at Kauai CC's campus. For example, the microfilm archive. And I think it's a great opportunity for students to get their hands dirty, so to speak. Get off of EBSCO for a bit, get face-to-face with their research.
Right on. And we also are here to help. So both the 2 librarians can help West Oahu students just like anything else. And occasionally, a West Oahu student will have a more sort of advanced research topic, and we'll shepherd them over to get help from the librarians at West Oahu.
100%, Jay. I've had the opportunity to work with Alfie and Kavena, 2 of UH West Oahu's librarians, pretty closely, and they are fantastic. I'm reminded of the first day of classes last semester. My laptop broke, and I was so stressed that I ran out and I bought the cheapest laptop I could find on island. I definitely wasn't thinking straight. So for all of the listeners, how can a student come in and check out a laptop from you guys?
Yeah, all they have to do is come to the circulation desk at the front of the library and let us know that you are a West Oahu student, because we have laptops set aside for those students. And just give us your student ID and we can get you all set up. You can have the laptop for the whole semester. Yeah, and in case of an emergency, like you mentioned, throughout the semester, or just maybe you're on campus unexpectedly and need a device, don't hesitate to stop by.
Jen, that's amazing. I wish that I knew about this last semester. So to all the listeners, learn from my mistakes. I'd also like to add, I've come to you guys with research questions and research ideas, and you have given me such great advice and insight over the years. So, in what ways are you able to direct or mentor students who have transferred to any of our 4-year universities in the UH system?
Yeah, you get to be an upper division student. I kind of feel like being over here in Kauai might be a little lonely, because we don't have that. This is a 2-year institution. So having us as a resource who have been to graduate school and have had the experience, it's a thing that can help a student if they were to come talk to us and, just get general ideas about like what that kind of life is like and what those expectations would be for that kind of class. And we could help you with research, of course, but it's not just that. It's like kind of understanding the academic levels that you've entered into, which are a little different than would be at KCC. And we can also help you with Kauai specific research topics. We have a lot of very subject specific knowledge or expertise about Kauai and specifics that honestly the folks on Oahu don't have. That's something that both of us have been working on about Kauai history, to be really knowledgeable about that in many different ways.
That's super cool, Jay. Thanks for all that information. Definitely when you're place-based learning and you're doing research on Kauai, it's good to have experts in the house that can kind of direct you on where to go and to find solutions to the projects that you're working on. So Jenn, let me ask you this question. What advice would you give to a distance learning student who is making this big transition in their academic career?
Well, first, I would just say congratulations. You made the first step in applying and all of that process. And my advice is just don't give up. Keep at it. And when it does get difficult, just find the support you need. And remember, here at the library, we are always here to help whatever you need in your academic journey. So don't hesitate to reach out.
That's great advice, Jenn, and I 100% agree. I've come to you guys when I just needed a laugh, when I needed to get off of Zoom for a while and get out of the house. Jay and Jenn are great people, and the library has great resources. Once again, mahalo for coming on the podcast and for all that you do. It's always a good time talking story with you. Mahalo. Aloha, and welcome back to Transfer Talk. As you know, my name is Travis, and I'm sitting down with my co-host, Dr. Schwab. As this series, Finding Your Groove, comes to a close, I just want to say, wow, we got a ton of great information covered in this series. So Dr. Schwab, can you give us some of the key takeaways?
Sure, Travis. This series has been full of information, as you guys have heard from our interviews and the different individuals who have given you practical advice based on their experiences at UH West Oahu. So I would say one of the key takeaways in this series at this point in your journey, now that you've found your groove, is that you can begin thinking ahead. At this point, you figured out your day-to-day routines, you have your classes scheduled, and you can begin thinking about the next steps down the road, such as beginning the brainstorming sessions on your capstone preparation. This includes understanding the structures of the capstone, or in some cases, inquiring and preparing for your practicum, which can lead directly into a future career. So it's really worth your time. And it's really important to start investigating possible internships that relate specifically to your course of study. And always check in periodically with faculty and advisors whom at this stage you have come to rely on to give you guidance specifically in navigating your chosen concentration. Travis, what would you say is the philosophical outlook that you began to embrace when you reached this stage in your academic journey?
Yeah, thank you for asking.
You, my friend, are quite welcome.
Of course, your generosity in these questions is astounding.
Well, I try. So kidding aside, Travis, what was the philosophy that you held when you were at this stage in your academic journey?
I think the philosophy of a successful distance education student changes at this stage in the journey. By now, you have the skill set and the knowledge of how to be successful in the traditional sense. By this, I mean getting good grades, as well as developing solid relationships with your professors and your peers. So now is the time to take your studies to the next level. Of course, this is highly dependent on where you're at, capabilities-wise, as an individual student, coming into the second half of your junior year. That being said, growth comes when we step outside of our comfort zone. So the mindset here is to take classes you normally wouldn't have considered, to take on a challenging research project, to work on something that would benefit the campus community, or closer to home, our on-island community. Ultimately, fight complacency. Get creative, lock in, and do some amazing work. Go above and beyond. So Dr. Schwab, can you fill us in on how a student can define success at this point in their journey?
Yeah, I think success at this stage in your journey includes narrowing down the possible subjects for your capstone project or possible landing spots for your practicum. You have a major, you have a concentration, and now it's a good time to refine concepts within the field even further. And this will guide you into your research. It's also a good time to feel confident that you have found the needed support network that you can rely on to guide you through this process. You should have a good grasp of different research methodologies and practices that will inform the direction of the major projects that get assigned later on. And finally, one of the greatest indicators of success is growing in confidence as who you are becoming as a student scholar. You have put in the time and you have started to build a level of expertise that will continue to guide your research. And it's really important to learn how to take constructive criticism and feedback in a way that doesn't discourage you, but it encourages you, knowing that people are willing to invest the time to hone your skills to get you to that scholar that you are becoming and that you already are. So really lean into that. It's going to help you navigate those times when you're wondering if you're doing everything right, if you're doing anything wrong, and it really helps to stop that idea of imposter syndrome, which is the false idea that you don't belong in this space. You've already put in the time, you've put in the effort, you've become a scholar, you're now diving deep into the end of your undergraduate studies. So you do belong in this space, and it's time to embrace that identity of who you are and who you've worked so hard to become. So, Travis, you've walked through this stage and you're currently in the final phase of your capstone. What are some practical ways and some advice you would give to students looking forward to this aspect of their academic journey?
For sure. I got 2 solid points of practical advice for this stage. First up, create exploratory outlines or even basic drafts of your capstone project in advance. This allows you to test potential ideas for any weaknesses or areas of concern. I've probably vetted 10 different potential hypotheses during my time at UH West Oahu before I decided on the best option for my capstone. Ultimately, you want to set yourself up for success, and vetting ideas in a low-stakes outline or rough draft is a good opportunity to do so. Second, start networking with potential employers and/or begin researching graduate school programs. Keep your eyes on the big picture, and again, set yourself up for success down the road. And with that, I want to say aloha.
And we'll see you soon in our next series entitled The Home Stretch. Ahui ho!
Mahalo for listening to Transfer Talk. The views and opinions shared by the hosts and any guests are solely theirs and do not reflect the views and opinions of UH West Oahu or Kauai Community College as an institution. If you enjoyed listening to this episode of the podcast, please like, share, comment, and check out all the other episodes. Aloha.